Have you ever destroyed yourself simply because you spoke too much? One emotional reaction, one impulsive confession, one moment of anger, weakness, or oversharing, and suddenly something private becomes a weapon used against you. Most people think honesty automatically creates freedom, that expressing everything makes you authentic. But in reality, uncontrolled expression often creates vulnerability, because every time you speak without discipline, you reveal patterns, your fears, your emotions, your insecurities, your limits. And the more people understand your patterns, the easier you become to predict and manipulate. That's the part nobody tells you. In a world obsessed with constant expression, silence becomes power. Because self-control is power, and every word you give away becomes information someone else can use. In this video, you're going to learn how to control the 4 things that quietly control most people: your mouth, your mind, your emotions, and your money. Not through motivation speeches or shallow self-help advice, but through strategic self-mastery. You'll understand why silence makes some people instantly more powerful, how uncontrolled emotions destroy influence, and why money often exposes weakness more than success. You'll also learn how real presence is built without speaking constantly, why disciplined people move differently, and how self-control changes the way the world responds to you. Because power is rarely lost all at once. It leaks slowly through impulsive words, emotional reactions, distractions, and dependency. And true power begins the moment you stop leaking control. Most people don't talk because they have something important to say. They talk because silence makes them uncomfortable. So they explain too much, react too quickly, defend themselves emotionally, reveal personal thoughts before trust is earned. And without realizing it, they hand people a map to their mind. Because talking always reveals something: your emotional state, your insecurities, your intentions, your level of control. That's why impulsive speaking is dangerous. Not because words are powerful by themselves, but because uncontrolled words expose patterns. The moment someone understands your patterns, they understand how to influence you. And modern culture encourages exactly this. Say everything. Express yourself. Be completely open. But complete emotional transparency doesn't create power. It creates predictability. Strong people understand something most people miss. Silence is information control. When you stop reacting instantly, people lose access to your internal world. They can no longer easily measure your emotions, your weaknesses, or your next move. And that uncertainty creates psychological strength, because silence changes the dynamic of every interaction. It forces other people to reveal themselves first. That's why silence isn't passive. It's strategic restraint, the calm pause before reaction, the ability to observe without exposing yourself emotionally. Silence is not the absence of power, it's controlled power. Once the mouth becomes quiet, another problem appears: the noise inside your own mind. Most people think their thoughts belong to them. They don't. Their attention is constantly being hijacked by distractions, fear, comparison, entertainment, anxiety, and endless mental noise. Every notification pulls the mind outward. Every unresolved memory pulls it backward. And slowly, focus disappears. That's why so many people feel mentally exhausted, even when they've done nothing important all day. Their mind never stops reacting. Overthinking becomes routine. Distraction becomes lifestyle. Negative thought loops become identity. But here's the dangerous part. Whatever controls your attention eventually controls your behavior, because attention is currency. The modern world fights for it constantly. Social media, outrage, trends, algorithms, drama, everything competes for space inside your head. And if you don't consciously decide what deserves your focus, someone else will decide for you. That's why mental discipline matters. Not every thought deserves obedience. Some thoughts weaken you. Some distract you. Some keep you trapped inside old versions of yourself. Strong people learn to observe thoughts without automatically accepting them as truth. They question them, filter them, control them, because the mind cannot become powerful while it remains emotionally overcrowded. Thoughts must be governed, not obeyed. And if you don't control your thoughts, someone else will control your focus. Most people believe emotional honesty automatically makes them authentic. But emotional honesty without control often becomes self-destruction. Because emotions are powerful, but unstable. Anger makes people speak before thinking. Fear makes them hesitate when action is needed. Oversensitivity makes them personalize everything. And emotional transparency reveals weaknesses to people who never earned access to them. That's why uncontrolled emotion destroys strategy. The moment your emotions fully control your behavior, your decisions stop becoming intentional. They become reactive. And reactive people are easy to manipulate. A single insult changes their mood. A single rejection changes their confidence. A single setback changes their direction. Strong people feel emotions deeply too. The difference is control. They don't suppress emotion completely. They govern it. Because feeling anger is normal, obeying anger is dangerous. Feeling fear is human. Letting fear make decisions is weakness. Awareness changes everything. The moment you become aware of an emotion without immediately reacting to it, the emotion loses authority over your behavior. And that pause creates power. It allows you to respond strategically instead of emotionally. That's the real difference between emotional people and emotionally disciplined people. One becomes controlled by internal storms. The other learns how to use emotion as energy, information, and direction, without surrendering control. Because emotion is powerful, but uncontrolled emotion makes you predictable. Money controls more people emotionally than they realize. Not because money itself is evil, but because most people attach their identity to it. They spend to feel important, buy things to look successful, consume constantly to escape insecurity, boredom, or emptiness. And modern culture rewards exactly this behavior. Status becomes performance, wealth becomes appearance, and financial pressure quietly turns people into prisoners of lifestyle. That's why so many people earn more money, but never feel more free, because dependence grows faster than income. The more someone needs expensive validation to feel valuable, the easier they become to control. A person terrified of losing status becomes emotionally owned by money. But real financial power looks different. Quiet savings, low dependence, controlled spending, long-term thinking. Strong people use money strategically, not emotionally. Because money should create freedom, not identity. It should reduce pressure, not increase it. And the people with the most control are usually not the loudest or flashiest. They simply need less from the world to feel secure. That's real independence. The strongest person is not the one who spends the most, but the one who needs the least. If you're realizing how much control the world gains through your impulses, subscribe, because self-mastery changes everything. Some people walk into a room and immediately change the atmosphere without saying much at all. That isn't charisma, it's control. Real presence comes from internal stability, from a person whose attention, emotions, words, and energy are no longer scattered everywhere. Most people leak energy constantly, through nervous talking, impulsive reactions, seeking validation, trying too hard to impress. But controlled people move differently. Their movements are calmer. Their speech is measured. Their reactions are restrained. And that stillness creates authority, because people naturally trust what appears grounded and difficult to shake. Presence is not loud confidence, it's emotional containment, the ability to remain calm while others become reactive, to stay composed while others chase attention, to observe without needing constant recognition. That's why true presence feels heavy without aggression. It's not forced, it's felt. And the more disciplined someone becomes internally, the more noticeable that presence becomes externally. Because people can sense when someone no longer desperately needs approval from the room. Presence is what happens when your energy stops leaking. Most people wait to feel motivated before they act. That's why they stay inconsistent. Because motivation is emotional. It changes with mood, energy, comfort, stress, and environment. Some days it appears. Most days, it disappears. Discipline works differently. Discipline acts whether emotion agrees or not. And over time, that consistency changes identity itself. Because every repeated action sends a message to your brain about who you are. Every workout completed when you didn't feel like training. Every distraction resisted. Every difficult task finished anyway. It all builds internal authority. You begin trusting yourself more because your actions stop depending entirely on emotion. That's the hidden power of discipline. It reduces internal chaos. Most people think discipline feels restrictive, but the opposite is true. Lack of discipline creates addiction, inconsistency, financial stress, emotional instability, and regret. Discipline creates freedom. Freedom from impulses. Freedom from emotional dependence. Freedom from constantly restarting your life every few weeks. Because controlled habits eventually create controlled outcomes. And once discipline becomes identity, decisions become easier. You stop negotiating with yourself constantly. You simply execute. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens your control. At this point, control stops feeling like a technique. It becomes identity. You stop reacting to everything around you. Stop explaining yourself constantly. Stop letting emotions, distractions, and impulses decide your direction. And slowly, something changes. Your silence becomes calmer. Your decisions become sharper. Your presence becomes heavier. Because real power was never external. It was always internal. Most people spend their lives trying to control circumstances, outcomes, and other people, while remaining completely ruled by their own impulses. But the moment you learn to control yourself, the world starts responding to you differently. Not because you became louder, because you became harder to move. That's the shift. From reactive to sovereign. From emotional chaos to precision. From seeking control to becoming it. So remember this. My mouth is calm. My mind is sharp. My emotions obey. My money serves me. That is self-rule. That is discipline. That is real freedom. Because freedom is not the absence of rules. It's mastery over yourself. Which one is hardest to control? Your mouth, your mind, your mood, or your money?